Welcome to episode 6 of AFK Chat. My name's Ender. I have James III here with me, and we are going to be getting into some lawsuit news coming out from the CDL and some of their players.
Pokemon finally sued Pow World, right? Is that what we're talking about?
No, that's not it. This is not Nintendo.
Well,
Nintendo was not going after that. I don't think there's going to be a lawsuit here, but we definitely have a lawsuit going on and some just interesting things that you read when you read a lawsuit on how they word it and who people call out and who really are friends of each other and what's actually going on in the world. But we also have what we were kind of talking about last week when we had I guess it wasn't last week, it was the middle of the week. We had 2 episodes that came out that week.
Yeah.
But for Xbox and all of their exclusive content going to different places, PlayStation launched on PC.
Finally,
for the first time.
And
what game was it? It was
Helldivers 2.
Helldivers 2. And it's on a multi-platform from PlayStation right off the bat. And do you think, like, I know you've been into more of this multi-platform console wars, this is your place, but do you think this is just the silent PlayStation, like, not being able to come out and talk a lot about this because Xbox has been so like, we're the ones, but they're just like, you know what, we're going to test the waters, we'll go to PC first. We brought some of our other games to PCs, the port didn't work out too well, but we're going to do this one on our own and see what we can do because we think Microsoft might be onto something. We think they could be.
I mean, Sony has definitely talked about wanting, they're clearly getting into the PC game. And at the end of the day, you know what, I went and looked back. You talked about Nintendo crushing everybody with the sales, the hardware sales. So I went back and I looked, and of course, nothing has come close to the PS2.
No.
That's the all-time top.
No.
Yeah. Below that's a handheld. I think it's one of the DS systems from Nintendo. And then
probably
I think maybe the Wii
screen,
is up there.
First screen DS.
But nothing's close. I mean, think about it this way. The Xbox Series is sold like, I don't know, 29 million. There are more Game Pass subscribers than there's Xbox consoles sold. So for the Xbox diehards,
well, they just put out the numbers for that. They gained another 10 million. Yeah, they gained another 10 million from last year.
So that should tell you something. And PlayStation, I think they're 2 to 1. But again, you're talking about only 60 million, like 50 to 60 million consoles sold. That's not a lot. And you just it makes sense. I think that this has been so successful. The next PlayStation exclusive, Ender, I will dare to put this on the record right now. The next big PlayStation first-party exclusive that is, God of War, the next Spider-Man, possibly even Wolverine. I think that would be the next one that comes up. The next Horizon Zero Dawn launches day and date with PC.
I could see that happening
because you're just leaving so much money on the table.
Well, I think they're slowly learning that. They quietly are testing the waters. They've kind of done that, and what choice do they have? Like, at the end of the day, like you said, if the console sales are not going to just be astronomical and driving the business, and hardware is expensive, and especially through, but we also have to look at the economy at the time, though, that these sales happened. We went through COVID. We went through all of the other things. So you couldn't make the consoles. So what would they be if that wasn't there? So I don't know if those numbers are 100% true of saying, oh man, that's really low for the way the economy was.
Well, even then, if you go back to the PS4 and to the Xbox One, they're not much. Projections are around the same as where they are now. So, and there was no issues then, and gaming was on the rise then. I just think that it's a different world. There are more. I'll tell you what COVID did, Ender, is, what is it, 2024? 5 years ago, if you said, James, get a PC and play PC games, I would have been like, you're outside your mind. I will never, ever play PC games. Ever. Ender. I was that adamant, and now here I am. The only thing I really play on is PC.
Well, that's because you're
changed.
Crazy, and you didn't understand
but
that,
I'm just
that
saying,
gaming started on a PC.
How many people that have continued to game, between 30s and 40s, have kind of left the console behind because it's easy for me to use everything that I game on, but also for my job.
Yeah, I'm not saying that that's not there, but I just say I'd be interested to see if those sales would have been there, if they would have been the same, if we hadn't gone through the economical crisis that we went through. Because, and even with the other ones being there, I don't think there was a terrible. If you look at the last generation, from this generation of consoles, from the last generation of consoles, the upgrade was huge. The hardware change was astronomical between the two. The last ones have been smaller increments when you talk about like real change inside of them and what they can do. So, and the next one might be even crazier. And basically all you're getting is, I wouldn't be surprised if the next console that comes out is the size of my PC because it has to host that size of graphics card.
Yeah.
Like, it's just they're becoming mini PCs that are closed off. They're basically becoming Apple. Like they're Apple computers. Yeah. They're closed off systems that are just giant computers that can do whatever you want them to do.
Let me ask you this. When you've got here's what cracks me about PlayStation. You had Starfield, touted as the big Xbox exclusive, but it was also on PC. And you had Spider-Man coming out, Spider-Man 2. And in the middle of all this, Baldur's Gate 3 launches. Now, due to some unforeseen issues with the Xbox console, for a while it was a de facto console exclusive to PlayStation. Not on purpose, but it just happened to be. And they went on and on how great this game was, and PlayStation, Sony ponies are all excited about it. And then meanwhile, Spider-Man comes out. Baldur's Gate 3 crushed it. Spider-Man 2. And then you look at Starfield, which was
both of them were in the running for Game of the Year.
But I'm saying sales-wise.
So, but I'm still
sales-wise.
You're looking at like
but
okay,
sales.
I got you. They're both Game of the Year games.
What makes Sony games great? They do make probably the best third-person action RPG style games that exist. They do, right? There's no real arguing with them.
No.
Yeah. But most of them are single player.
Yep.
So when they launch, they get that initial rush of sales, and then a couple months later, the game's not talked about anymore. Well, Which game is better? Which game is better, Ender? Starfield or Spider-Man 2?
I haven't played either one of them, so I don't know.
But popularity-wise, I would say Spider-Man was by far and large a better game.
Yeah.
So which game is more in the news and talked about and still being played today?
Well, but I also don't think Starfield is being the news. All the news about Starfield is this great, wonderful.
I didn't say that was great. It's not what I'm saying. It's great.
It's like, okay, you've been in the news longer because it took you so long to develop this game. I was expecting something so great, and you know what? It kind of flopped.
But it's still.
And I'm still going to talk about it because I have to get through this like million hours of content that you're going to give me. That's really subpar at most. And not really growing at the rate I want. But everyone that played Spider-Man 2 is like fantastic, awesome replayability. I'll play it again when I'm done with some of the other games. Like you're comparing apples to oranges and like game type and stuff like that. And also success in the game. Like hands alone, it's a better game. It won out. Baldur's Gate beat both.
What I'm saying is imagine if Spider-Man had also released on PC. They would have sold more. Sales. They would have sold more. The sales would have been crazy. That's what.
But like what you're trying to say is like, okay, they sold more. They sold more of a bad game. Okay. Oh, everyone now understand if you put your game on more sales platforms, you're gonna be able to sell more games. James, the insight is unreal that you have here.
What do you think?
If you put your product in more stores, you sell more things.
This is an honest question, Ender. What do you think? Who do you think sold more on day one? Spider-Man 2 or the day before?
The day before, probably. But again, you're comparing a game that studio doesn't exist anymore.
But what I'm saying is
swindled everyone out of their money for 9 years.
This should be an eye-opener to Sony to say all they're doing is helping their own studios.
I understand what you're saying, but I understand what you're saying, but the way you're going about saying it, is not effective argument. Your argument is if you put your shit in more stores, you're going to sell more. Even if it sucks, guys, guess what? Just put it in more stores and you sell more. Don't send that message out there.
Well, Phil Spencer is making comments about it.
Well, that's fine. That's Phil Spencer. He can make comments about it because Phil Spencer's on his high horse right now. Phil Spencer is pretending that the launches last year didn't happen and that everything is going to be this year. Okay?
I heard an interesting fact about that lines up with Microsoft's overall strategy with what we talked about last week. If you can take yourself away from the so-called console war and just back out of it for a second and look at it in Microsoft's history, Microsoft has already been in a so-called console war. Do you know who they did that with years ago, Ender?
Who?
Apple.
Enlighten me. Well, yeah, absolutely.
Now here's the argument. Microsoft was like, hey, you do your thing. You make your stuff. And Apple started selling way more. But how did Microsoft end up being a bigger company with certain, like they grew their side by piggybacking off of it by doing what? Most of the Apple stuff that people use are still using Microsoft software.
That's a completely different story on how
it's the same thing as but I'm saying it's the same, like, and so for Microsoft,
no. So it didn't. No. What happened was, what happened there was
games on PlayStation. Like they're okay. What I'm saying is that they're okay with it.
But that's not how that worked. Apple noticed that more people were not using their software for processing.
Yeah.
And they moved to Intel specifically so Microsoft could put software on to their devices. So it wasn't the other way around. Like it wasn't like, oh, Apple decided that or Microsoft decided they couldn't compete, so let's make something for Apple. It was like, no, Apple opened it up for them to be able to do that.
No, but I'm saying
in order for them to do it. So it's not like
no, but that's what I'm saying.
It's really not. It's not driven by the same factors.
No, but what I'm saying is that Apple, I guess I didn't set this up right. Is
that's going to be the title of the show? James didn't set this up right.
So sorry, I heard a statement of like, is there a chance that PlayStation doesn't allow the games on their console? And the answer would be no, because just like what you just said, why would Apple not let a better software program run on their system?
Well, they didn't forever. Like, and it wasn't, and they still don't believe it's better. They didn't forever. So when they made the switch, the cost of making proprietary chips was so high at the time that it was easier for them to switch and use Intel Silicon. Now we're back to Apple Silicon. They're like, we will always go back to making our own chips, and we're back to it with M1s, M2s.
Yeah,
Apple's making their own silicon. Now they're still allowing for that to happen. But if you really want to say what Microsoft did again, and what you're really trying to say here is
please help me
Microsoft put all of their products in the cloud.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter what system you had because you went to your browser, and I can use Microsoft Word in my browser on my Mac. So that's what they're trying to do with their games. So everything that Microsoft has been done, and the history and the track record, and that's one of them being successful in cloud migration, started with how do we get Microsoft Word to every single user, Linux, Apple, PC? How do we get them to use it easily? Hey, you have a browser. Go ahead and use it in the browser, and we'll put it in the cloud for you. I don't download Office anymore on any of my things. I just go to a browser and use it through the browser.
Don't you agree that that's why I think that this whole thing will work for Microsoft, because they already know what they're doing?
I agree with you on that, but like the title of the show is going to be James set this up wrong. It took us way too long to get to your point of yes.
I'm old.
They're going to make it easier.
I'm old.
They're going to make it.
Comments.
It comes back to what I told you before. That was your most enlightening statement that you ever made on any of our podcasts is you put your shit in more storage, you sell more. Shocker. You get in front of people, they're going to buy more of them, James. It's amazing. You figured out business to a T. Don't make it hard for people to buy your shit. PlayStation makes it hard for people to buy their shit. You have to buy their console. You have to be on their store. You have to have the exclusive.
Like buying a Ubisoft game. Takes you 2 hours to launch it.
Exactly.
You gotta
don't make it hard.
Play and
anyway, to our actual like topic of the day. Let's
now
move
that
off.
I've exhausted you.
Yeah, I'm tired now. I don't want
Are
to
you
talk.
ready for more stupid questions from me? Because they're coming.
Honestly, these are going to be ones where we're just like, we have no idea. We're going to have to wait on a lot of
No,
this.
I've got a lot of things to ask you. Don't worry.
But anyway, so moving forward, the big news of the week, I think it probably captured most news outlets, made it to Bloomberg, made it to pretty much every major outlet you move up. This news is out there right now on this lawsuit that's coming up. And some of my favorite group, like I was shocked when I saw this. I was shocked that it's so public in the way they did it, like right in the middle of a season. But we're going to be talking
planned, clearly.
Yeah, this is planned. So Scump and HECZ. If you don't know, HECZ is the owner of Optic Gaming. Scump, I believe, is a part owner now, maybe, but also was one of the main players on the Call of Duty League, grew Call of Duty through the league, everything there. But these guys are now suing basically not suing the Call of Duty League, but they're basically suing the owners of the Call of Duty League, which is Activision Blizzard. So in the original outputs, and we'll go through some of the tweets. Charlie Intel has a bunch of tweets, kind of keep up with it, snippets from the actual lawsuit. But the lawsuit is over $680 million, stating that the Call of Duty League is a monopoly for esports dealing with Call of Duty. Like no one else can do Call of Duty anything unless it's done through them.
Now, before you go on here, my initial reaction is these guys would be nothing if it wasn't for Call of Duty. They've made their entire persona and thing by playing this game. And also,
I don't know if that's 100%.
I'm also very confused when they say
a lot of them started in different games before Call of Duty started.
But they are what they are today because of Call of Duty. Like I would know who they were. Like the average person would know who they were.
I'm not going to get into what they would have been because that's speculation.
But my question is the Call of Duty League is owned by Activision. The game is owned by Activision. So if they want to not have anyone else have any tournaments, isn't that their right? It's their game.
Well, I mean, I think that's what this lawsuit is about. Like, are we holding an unjust monopoly around the ability for an esport? So if you wanted to be able to do esports before, you had multiple platforms to play the game on. Like you had Game Battles, you had a couple of other studios that were around. Major League Gaming was another one. Activision bought Major League Gaming. Like that's one of the big reasons why this lawsuit's coming up is we had other places to go and we could play the game in different spots, but because you're the owner, it's like the NFL doesn't own football. So the XFL was able to happen. The UFL was able to happen. They're able to combine their leagues and now have, is it called the UFL? I don't know.
The USFL and the XFL
USFL combined with the XFL for the UFL.
It's weird. It's
which is the summer league that they're going to have now. Like I could go out and start my own football league if I wanted to. Like I don't own the rights to football.
Yeah, but you can go out and start your own first person shooter game if you want.
But again, that's different. There, I can't
this game.
But what we're saying now is, do they own the right to monopolize the tournament playing of a game they own, or not? Like that's the question that we have.
I mean, because your example. Listen, I'm throwing you under the bus here because you just shit on me for 9 minutes. Your example is dumb because the NFL didn't invent football. Like the sport that's played.
But they didn't invent first-person shooters. They created the property that they have.
This particular game is theirs. Like no one else can go out there and
set a precedent in the beginning of allowing these other game battle areas to come in, and you could play the game across multiple different tournaments. You didn't lock the tournaments down exclusively. You didn't monopolize the area by just taking over and saying, "Oh, nope, you're not going to do this." Now, do I believe in all of that? I don't know. I'm kind of on your side of like, well, if I own it, like I kind of want these tournaments to happen. But when you start getting into the lawsuit and some of the things that they required them to do, were those contracts lawful? Were they able to do these certain things?
Yeah,
Also,
some of that I've read. I agree with you. So
the purchase of Major League Gaming even legal? Like there's some issues that they have here where they didn't bring it up to the FTC. So this whole acquisition that Microsoft did with Activision Blizzard went in front of all of these boards to determine whether or not they'd create a monopoly, James. Even though they bought all of these things, when you buy stuff, you have to determine whether or not it's going to be a monopoly. Well, they didn't do that with Major League Gaming. But I also don't think we were at the spotlight time where anyone would have spotlighted this to be like, oh man, we're going to have $1 billion industry on this. These damn kids playing video games.
Those people on the FTC looked at video games like a
yeah, they didn't know at the time. But let's just get into some of the things that they're talking about, like the actual facts of what's going on, the speculation. There's going to be a lot. The suit alleges that Activision holds an unlawful monopoly over the Call of Duty esports scene, so specifically esports. So that's the other thing is like they don't own esports, but they don't have to let your game play in esports. I don't know. Like that's what we're questioning. Like, should I allow my game to be in there if I want to or not? And has wielded its power to prohibit growth in an anti-competitive nature. Namely, those involved have taken legal stance against Call of Duty League's initial entry fee, alleging Activision coerced 12 teams to pay an extraordinary $27.5 million for the privilege of being able to compete. Now, your entry fee is your entry fee. Like I don't have a problem with them charging an amount that these guys agreed to. Like you if you want to compete, you have to pay the entry fee. Is that a monopoly in a game that they own? I don't know. If I want to play in the NFL, I got to get a spot in the NFL and probably pay the NFL some money to get in the league. Like I could go start my own league, but here you have intellectual property issues. It was the last year of the Overwatch League. So it goes into kind of like Overwatch and how they started Overwatch once they bought MLG in order to kind of test. Teams were impacted of $680 million in damages is what they're calling. And this is all coming from Bloomberg Law. Like this isn't, we're not pulling these out of the game sites. I know it's Dexterra that we have up here right now, but Bloomberg Law was the first ones to really report on this. I'm going to kind of get into some of the specific things that Charlie Intel has, but here is one of the things. Furthermore, those signed to the CDL allegedly must refrain from participating in or supporting any Call of Duty leagues of tournaments other than Activision's Call of Duty League. So if there's anything else going on out there, no one can be part of it. You cannot be part of it. You're also restricted to commercializing the Call of Duty gameplay outside of the league. So those guys like Scump had to only play Call of Duty. Like I couldn't go out and play Halo. I couldn't come out and do a bunch of other things because I was under contract with that specific league. Like you couldn't see me playing Tiger Woods golf on stream if I wanted to play, even though it wasn't a first-person shooter. I couldn't play anything else.
You know what's funny? But here's why I find it interesting. This can't be some of these things I'm reading about this being exclusive. There's no way they're exclusive to just the CDL and Activision, because over the last 10 years, how many professional gamers are now entertaining streamers because they realized they were making more money streaming than going to tournaments? They can make more money.
No, I mean there's a lot of that here.
So I think these things were how it was before. And then one thing I looked it up real quick on my phone because you had mentioned, how much did you say it was? $26 million to enter?
26.7. Just
so you know, in 2000, before that was the last time before the Las Vegas Golden Knights came into play. In 2000, there was two teams, the Minnesota Wild and the Columbus Blue Jackets, entered the NHL. Their franchise entry fee to the league was only $80 million.
Yeah, it's
now it's $500 million to enter the league.
I mean, it's a different league.
$1 billion for, I think, when Seattle came in. But it's crazy to think that an esport was they were charging them 26, and we don't even know when that supposedly.
This year. That was this year.
That was this year.
Yeah, so every year you have to pay
crazy. Like,
So
there's no way that this. There's no way that this.
well, this
league
wasn't
is
just like
generating-
from what I hear, this was a yearly entry fee.
But
So they
that's what I'm
wiped
saying.
the
When was
slate.
the first time that they charged that much?
I think this year was the number. I don't know. I don't have.
Like, there's no way
information.
this league is generating that much money to cover these teams' cost.
Well, that's in the lawsuit here. Of there's a lot of things that they've done in order to give the. There's a lot of things they've done that have cost them money, and that's what they're saying. Is that the league? I paid you this money in the league, and you've cost me money in the long run with how you've driven the league into the ground, and like ruined a bunch of stuff and made some bad decisions. So this was in 2020. Like, here's going back 2020, and this is one of the tweets where I remember this coming out, and I was like, well, that doesn't seem right. The CDL, and this is from Optic Scump, the CDL also made us sign a player contract in front of them without allowing us to run it by our lawyers at the player summit. Okay. One, that's unlawful right there of making someone like sign a contract, but they did it. They didn't say you couldn't have a lawyer. And I think he made that he didn't really say this right. He said, oh, we couldn't run it by his lawyer. No, it wasn't what they said. They said, if you don't sign it now, you don't get to play.
Yeah.
In the tournament, that's tomorrow.
So that's not necessarily unlawful.
No, it's not with the way they said it, but only giving them one day, sit here and sign this in front of us so you can play. What are you going to do? Like, you're going to sign the thing to play.
Well, your lawyer would have told you not to sign it.
No, but I don't get paid now. Now I can't get paid. Now my job is to play video games, and I don't get to pay.
That's one of those things where these companies don't want things like unions to be involved, because if they had
that's
like
why the players' unions are involved in all sports.
Yeah, because if imagine if the NFL was like, if you guys don't sign this waiver thing, you can't play on Sunday. Then I guess we ain't having football on Sunday, because the players' union would have been like, no.
Exactly. So jumping over to Charlie Intel, they have more here. So when this first came out, we actually thought it was all of the teams in the league were filing against this. Like, they actually got it wrong, which I'm shocked that Bloomberg Law got this wrong in a lawsuit.
Yeah.
But anyway, they thought it was wrong. It's actually just Optic, HECZ, and Scump. They're the only one on there, and HECZ LLC. So HECZ's company that he owns,
which is the parent company of Optic, right?
No. So that's where this gets kind of interesting. It's his own company that he has. Optic's purchase is separate from there, but he has been able to use his own LLC to do other things inside of Optic that they've allowed him to do, because he's actually had to sell Optic multiple times to play in the Call of Duty League. And here's where it becomes kind of interesting on what the league made him do in order to get that seat, even though he had the money to pay. So there's some other interesting things that happened. So the lawsuit filed by the CDL owners against Activision alleges that Activision bought the MLG in 2016 to fully monopolize its esports business, and claiming Activision failed to get FTC permission to acquire the MLG. So here's your first thing of like, is this a monopoly? Did the FTC sign off of it? Now, this was 2016. We are now in 2024. Wondering why he didn't bring this up through all of those other years. But again, who knows? People get smarter, deals get worse, and the league was booming then. This is 2016.
Yeah.
Esports was on the rise. We were really at the top.
Was esports popularized for the casual person thanks to MLG?
Yes. A lot of it. It started playing on ESPN. You would see it on ESPN2. You would see on some of these other things.
That's the only I didn't know. I'm going to be honest with you. Until a couple of years ago, I thought all esports were under MLG.
I played on MLG. Like, that's
we were doing. I played in
like,
MLG tournaments. Not like on stage or anything, obviously.
No. I mean, I competed in them. I won some money through them. Like, you were able to do it. It was popular, especially when Call of Duty came out and Halo. Call of Duty and Halo were really the games that drove it. I'm not going to go into the exact detail here, but if you want, you can go to Charlie Intel and read what it says. I will pull some snippets out of some of the things that we have. So the lawsuit claims that HECZ suffered damages because Activision refused to let HECZ own a spot in the CDL league without guaranteed investors. So here's where it becomes like they're forcing him to do it. So they basically and forced HECZ to sell the team to Envy, because Optic is actually owned by Envy now, even though he had the money in order to get in the league, because they wanted him to have sponsors backing him. So they said, oh, you're just an individual owner. That's not how we want to do things. We want you to be part of this bigger thing. You can't enter the league.
And you know what's funny? How many times have we heard this over the last 2 years that they won't let Dr. Disrespect own a team?
Exactly. I mean, but I'm also wondering how Nadeshot did it with 100 Thieves. Like, who owns 100 Thieves then? Like, because Nadeshot's been part of that too. So I didn't know that 100 Thieves is probably owned by another bigger company outside of that, if that was still the conditions. Now, they may have let them do that. They may not. I don't know their deals. I'm not a lawyer. We'll preface this by neither one of us are lawyers and understand this kind of law. We're just reading these things and interpreting them off of the paper, making our own opinions. But as a condition of partnering with Rodriguez, which these are from Activision, and when they went into the billionaire investors, basically these billionaire investors deemed that Rodriguez grant them 92.5% ownership share in his company Optic IP LLC, an asset that has been a private market evaluation of at least $100 million if Rodriguez's Optic branded team continues to participate in professional Call of Duty. So these guys came in. Basically, Activision Blizzard said you have to use one of the approved teams that we have. These are the guys that we want you to go with. And they're like, guess what? If you want to play, you owe us 92.5%. This is just trying to get into the league. Like, and I know everyone out there is going to be like, well, you just don't join the league then. This is your passion. This is what you do. This is what you are. This is what you build for. This is what Optic is about. So he's going to do everything in his power to compete and to do this. That's what these guys do. That's what they're for. So I don't want to hear the whole thing of, well, just don't play. Like, that's not in the cards for him. He must play. He has to keep these players employed. And it's what he does. It's like telling a baker to go stop being a baker and become a firefighter.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what you're going to do. You're going to figure out a way. And right now, his way is this lawsuit of like, hey, I think there's some problems going on here. So basically, Activision refused the approval of Rodriguez to be the sole owner of a team. Dr. Disrespect, like you said, sole owner of a team. We're not going to let you do this if you're the sole owner. Why? Where out there in any business does it say if you bring, like, if you have enough money to enter the NFL as a sole owner of a team, you could be the sole owner of a team. Now you have to prove you have the assets.
Yeah, it's got to get voted by. But you know who prevents people from joining a league? All the other owners. It's not like just one entity. So this would be like
the owners don't have a say. This is just Activision saying.
That's what I'm saying. So it would be okay if there was like all 12. You know,
sure.
Somebody wanted, if Dr. Disrespect wanted to join the league and the other 12 owners voted against it.
Yeah,
that's a different
situation there.
But
so as we move on,
they have one Roger Goodell and he controls everything.
Pretty much. So then the lawsuit states that Activision signed with the Call of Duty League streaming rights with a YouTube deal and Google, because Google offered Activision discount deals on their cloud services. Okay. So this part of the lawsuit is stating that you're not acting in I don't know the best word to say.
Owners.
Best interest of the owners of the team. You're acting in the best interest of Activision Blizzard, because what Google went in and said was like, hey guys, you use our cloud to run your game. You give us exclusive rights to your game. And you remember when that flipped? Because we were watching it on Twitch and then all of a sudden we could only see it on YouTube and we're like, why?
Yeah.
Like, we even questioned like this, why?
That was what, 2 years ago, and then last year went back to Twitch finally.
And the ratings dropped
went down hugely.
But the reason why was because they changed that. That changed once Activision attained 100% monopoly over the professional Call of Duty League. Activision granted YouTube, a wholly owned subsidiary of Google, the exclusive broadcasting rights to the Activision COD League, COD League, without standing that it would have been more financially benefit for the players and teams for the COD League to broadcast on multiple networks or YouTube's competitor Twitch. They already knew the streaming was there, but on the information and belief, Activision was granted broadcasting rights in exchange for price concessions from Google in respect to Google Cloud Services and Activision for its video game platform. So I'm going to make a deal with my league that I own. I'm going to do this. And you know what? I'm not going to take into consideration what could make more money, such as YouTube, Facebook, and at the time, conventional cable networks like ESPN, which were involved in some of the conversations. So they didn't allow a vote. They didn't let the team say anything. They said, nope, we're just going exclusive, and you have to follow this, to the point where the streamers had to move their streams. They couldn't stream the game on Twitch. Scump had to get up and leave and move to YouTube. They did that for a year. Didn't work out. They moved back. But again, that's not looking at the best interest of the league that you have. In 2021, acquired 100%. This is just going back how he was refused a spot. You can read more on there about that particular thing. We kind of move on. Another point in the lawsuit, Activision allegedly forced CDL teams to sign new terms with Activision and would release any of claims against them to exchange for debt relief. So here's an interesting thing. So you can't say anything bad about me because I'm going to relieve your debt with money. So they know you're losing money in all of these deals we're making. We know,
and they know that they were wrong.
And they know that they are wrong. So they put this thing in, forcing the owners to basically say, if you release any claims, it's right here. So first, Activision forced owners to accept erroneous new terms whereby the teams would have to release any claims against Activision in exchange for debt relief and for a paltry sum of money. For the teams that did not acquiesce to Activision's terms. So some teams said no. Activision has threatened to withhold lucrative tournament hosting opportunities. So there was a question why Optic wasn't able to host a tournament like a year ago. They didn't have a major. Interesting that your biggest team doesn't have a major. I'm wondering if this was because they held out on one of these things, thereby starving the team's much needed revenue. Second, on January 30th of 2024, just 2 days before the first major tournament of the 2024,
after the major, for 2 days
after the first major tournament of 2024, Activision COD League season in Boston, Activision fired 60 of the 72 staff that were in their esports division, leaving just 12 employees.
Question:
83% reduction in force. Put simply, Activision's monopoly has run Activision COD League into the ground.
Question before you jump into this. Did Activision fire them, or is this part of the Microsoft layoff?
This is probably part of the Microsoft layoff, which Activision Blizzard, was part of. So this is after the change ownership. So yeah, it's Microsoft that did it. But I mean, you fire 60 of 72 employees and you're leaving them with 12 people to run this league. That does not seem like enough. I'm sorry. Just like with how big the broadcasts
seems
are,
like too much, but 12 definitely seems
like not enough. And there's just another thing about the damages and how the players exit. And just some of these guys for their own stream have more than 12 people working for them, like to do a solid stream. So here's where they correct themselves. It's only HECZ and Scump and HECZ LLC that's part of this filing. It's not all of the teams, so it's just these guys here. There was a response. Call of Duty did have a response. Mr. Rodriguez, aka Optic HECZ, and Mr. Abner, which is Scump, Seth Abner, demanded that Activision pay them tens of millions of dollars to avoid a meritless litigation. And when their demands were not met, so they tried to do this out of court.
Yeah,
they tried to bring this out of court. We will strongly defend against these claims, which have no basis in fact or in law. We are disappointed that these members of the esports community would bring a suit which is disruptive to team owners, players, fans, and partners who have an interest, invested so much time and energy into the Call of Duty's league success. What success? I'm trying to understand what the success is that I talk about, because I've been watching this from day one. There has been no success in the Call of Duty League. They have driven it into the ground with a lot of the decisions and flip-flopping that they have made.
Now, a lot of what Scump does right now is live react to these CDL tournaments, right?
Yeah, he's still doing it too while this lawsuit is going on.
Stop him from doing that?
I mean, I don't know, but right now, after the lawsuit's been filed, just yesterday he was streaming, and doing it. So they haven't stopped him from doing it yet. So I think we're just getting into some of the same things over and over with the different lawsuits. But yeah, that's pretty much what is going on. Here's the news about Optic is continuing to host a watch party for the CDL matches today with Scump and HECZ stream. So they're still going on. Now, their deal still. So until they change the law and everything, or change their aspect of what they see here, they're probably not going to stop them. I don't think it would look good on their end to stop them from doing the stream right now, because that's another thing they could say, well, you're not it's still another monopoly of I can't live react to this. But Scump was one that had to get permission. It wasn't like we could just go do this live reaction and replay their stuff. Just like I can't rebroadcast the NFL and live record that. Like I can't do that. So there's other deals that they're working. So anyway, the interesting part about all of this is no one really knows the direction that you're going to go. It's only Hex and Seth. The other teams didn't get involved with it. They're kind of staying out. So what happens here? Like if they win the lawsuit, they get paid out. I think it's like $20 million or something like that. They would get. It's $160 million lawsuit. But let's face it. You're not going to get the 160 out of all of it. How long is this going to take? Like, I mean, obviously,
if you're talking about over $20 million for the last 5 or 6 years for entry fees, that adds up really quickly, Ender.
Yeah,
I could see over $100 million. Like, and also, are they? Here's the other question. I didn't realize that you could. I mean, I guess you can sue anybody, right? It's the United States. But are they suing Activision? Are they actually suing Microsoft now that Microsoft owns them? Does Microsoft get involved?
Microsoft is a subsidiary, is the owner of the subsidiary Activision Blizzard. Activision Blizzard now has the might of Microsoft behind them. Like, I'm sure their legal department has combined with the legal side of things, and they have all that together.
How much do you think Microsoft knew about all this in the middle of their acquisition?
I mean, I think it's gonna
$69 million or whatever, right? But
I mean, it's gonna turn up. Like they would probably know the laws and the deal, like the deals that they made, but like the specific details. I mean, it's lawyers, man. Like,
I mean, how quickly? So if Microsoft lawyers get involved, and let's be honest, Microsoft is on trying to be a positive PR spin. How quickly does this become something that quickly gets paid off and let's move on? Microsoft steps in, and
I think that's what they're looking to do. But here's something. I'm sorry, I missed this. I didn't mean to skip over it, but here's something that I want to put in, because this is one of the ridiculous things about the entry fee. So wielding the unlawful monopoly power as a vehicle, a virtual nuclear weapon, Activision coerced 12 teams to pay Activision $27.5 million entry fee for privilege of being one of the 12 teams to participate in the league, and give Activision unconditional 50% share of revenue the team generated from ticket sales, sponsorships, and other revenue streams. So like Scum stream, he's probably paying 50% of what he's getting to Activision
because of getting the permission
because the permission and other streams of revenue. They also, Activision stopped them to contact the most lucrative professional Call of Duty sponsors, such as energy drink companies. So they can't get sponsorships with Monster Beverage or Mountain Dew. They can't do anything military related companies. So USSA Insurance, like think of Call of Duty here. Think of who they would go after in order to do this. And Activision, the exclusive right to contract with broadcasters. So the teams couldn't even go out like MLB teams. Like I just know this for the MLB, like the broadcasting rights, the team could go sell their own broadcasting rights to whatever station that they want. It's normally a local.
Yeah, for example, like the Yankees being with the Yes Network, or the Chicago Cubs being with WGN, things like that.
So they wouldn't even let these guys do that. Like you couldn't get an exclusive deal for your own team, your broadcasting deal. So all of the things that you would allow major sporting teams to do, because Activision not only owned the game and owned the rights to it, they owned the league that you must play in. They essentially created what sounds like a monopoly. If you want to play in this world, you have to play in the things. But again, it comes down to like what you said before. Is it really a monopoly if I own the thing? Like I built
you actually built it and you own it.
Yeah.
Like you didn't you are a tournament company that came along and monopolized yourselves as the main tournament using this game. You made a tournament with your game and you are confining it. And
here's another thing that was interesting.
It's like, okay, if you're like, go have a Titanfall league, start your own Titanfall league, see if Respawn lets you have their game. Like, you know what I mean? Like from that, all the a lot of the other stuff in their contracts bullshit behind all that. But the main basis of this is that they made a game. They make us, if we want to play the game, we can only play by their rules. It's hard for me to look at this and go, you kind of did this to yourself. Like, when you sign that thing 2 days, if they say you either sign this or you don't play, you did it to you. You chose to sign it. They didn't say that you couldn't give it to your lawyer. You just couldn't play tomorrow. And that's where it's like, then you guys all should have got together and say, we're not signing this.
But it's also like your company tomorrow with a company you work for.
Yeah.
Deciding to come up with some bullshit deal that says, you know what, James, I'm going to cut your salary in half by this amount tomorrow. And you have to sign this deal that says you're not going to say anything bad about us. And we're going to do it because we own the thing that you're selling. We own what you're going to do. We own you. Yeah, you can go to other places and things like that, but that's unlawful. Like I can't do that. I can't just come in and make the changes and do these things because I own the playing field right now and you're going to play by my rules. So there is a just opportunity here that they bought, and it really comes down, and I think what it really comes down to in this entire lawsuit was the purchase of the MLG league legal? Does that make them a monopoly here out of it? Because you used to have,
but how do you go back that far 8 years ago and decide that it was a monopoly?
I mean, you can look at the deal.
It got signed off on, apparently.
It didn't get signed off on. They're saying the FTC never signed off on that deal. So that's what they have to do, is they have to backtrack it all and see if they can go do that. I don't know.
Then how does the deal even go through? Apparently, I don't know how any of this shit works.
I mean, but I don't have to. The FTC doesn't watch every business transaction that ever happens. Some of them are so small that they don't care. You're not going to create a monopoly out of. But what they're saying here is because of this, they have forced everyone else out of the ability to do this. And not only did they do it with Call of Duty, they did it with Overwatch. They got rid of the Overwatch League. They've done it multiple times here. And are these contracts even legal in the sense of contracts?
What cracks me up is all the stuff that you hear about Activision doing this. All they've ultimately done is cost themselves money and ruin their own games and their own tournament scenes and the pro scenes. It doesn't make it just doesn't make it's like who's running the ship here? Who's steering the ship? Because it doesn't make any sense to me.
No, I don't think it makes sense to anything. But again, that's the details that we have. That's going to be the wrap up for the show today. I'm sure most of you did not want to listen to that long of us talk about that, but I think it's super interesting. It really is going to, this lawsuit is going to set a precedent for how leagues are going to be developed
on any game.
On any game.
On any game.
Whether it's good or bad, I don't know.
That's where I think it's probably the most important thing about this is what people aren't talking about right now because they just think it has to do with Call of Duty. Any game that you want a competitive scene going forward, this will set a standard and a rule set by a lot of different governments, I'm sure, that will get involved, especially with the Microsoft buying Activision and just bringing to light worldwide. Let's be honest. There are more people in the government seats that could give two shits about video games that are now completely understanding that, wow, these video games make more money than lot
when
of
you're
other
throwing
companies
around these
were worried
numbers, like
about.
this isn't a bullshit suit. Like they're talking $680 million. Like this isn't a small thing. They're talking the damages that they're talking about and what it could be. And you have, you don't have a lot of professional sport or professional esports doing well right now. The boom is kind of over. That everyone's staying at home and watching video games is not happening anymore with everyone going back to work. But the ability not to create player unions, not to allow them to do the things that other classic sports have in them, and following that model, we could see some big changes in how these leagues are built and developed in the future, or the changes to um, what other leagues are going to be able to do to the people that are in them that may have better deals. Like this could backfire for some other leagues where it's like they set a precedent and the other owners are like, hey, we can do this now. We don't have to follow all these rules that we thought we did because Activision's not. So why should I? So anyway, that's been AFK Chat episode 6, focusing mainly on James not saying things correctly and
Listen, I did
not having all of the
I do want
answers.
to add one more thing. I want to add one more thing. I talked about that the video game world is becoming a big deal. I just looked it up. The largest acquisition, the largest payout ever in the history of like any company ever doing it was $202.8 billion back in 1999. Vodafone acquired
What a name.
Mannesmann or whatever. But so the largest is 202.8 billion. Just think about this. $69 billion Activision was just acquired by Microsoft. Like that's not that far off from like the largest of all time. Like so like I said, like you said, this thing will set a precedent because it is now our world, our video game world that everyone, wants to call us nerds or dweebs or we don't pay attention and we're not. It is a big piece of the pie now in the grand scheme of the economy for the world.
Well, yeah, and I think you're looking at just what they've asked people to do, the amount of money we're throwing around, it's $27 million to just join a league. Like this isn't small anymore because you gotta think, even though they agreed to this deal, 50% of all of the stuff was going back to Activision. I still got to be making more than my entry fee. I still got to be making more than that.
And it's crazy to me when you say to entry fee for a team, like when a team joins like the NHL, the NFL, like I think it was like almost $1 billion for the Seattle team to come in the NHL. The $1 billion doesn't go to the NHL. Do you know who it goes to? The other owners. It's just split up evenly.
Yeah.
So like if you're taking $27 million entry fee times 12 teams,
that's just going right to Activision's bottom line.
Where's the money? Like, what are they using the money for?
I mean, it's supposed to be used to put on the events, to secure all the rights, to do all of that stuff that they're supposed to be doing for them, but they're obviously not doing because they're saying, I'm going to take your ticket sales. I'm going to take this. I'm going to take that. Like, it's just a money grab that they're doing. And again,
how much money do you win if you win the CDL?
I don't know. I think I could go back and figure it out from what Thieves got last year, but I don't know off the top of my head. It's not $27 million. I think in the tournaments there might be, it depends on the sponsorships and how much they're giving them. I honestly don't know.
$200,000 if you win a major.
$200,000 to win a single tournament to the guys that were playing in the tournament.
So if you won every major, you can't get your money back. Not even close.
No, but I think the bigger thing is
what other money do you?
It's the sponsorships. It's the clothing deals. It's all the other stuff that you're going to get, like everything else. It's me hosting my event and concessions, and it's how pro sports make their money. Like they're not making money unless they're selling things to people, but they're also stifling their ability to do that by saying you're going to give me 50%. Like, do you think Dallas Cowboys is going to give the NFL 50% of all of the concessions that they make at their concession stands when they play a game? I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, I know the team that wants to host the Super Bowl is going to pay the NFL a certain amount of money, but they're going to keep everything that they get for hosting that Super Bowl and all the sponsorships and commercials and all the other bullshit they're going to be able to sell. Like they're going to keep that. That's on them. So I think there is some unlawful things that are happening inside of this, but they were written down in contracts and you agreed to the deal. So the question becomes, is the deal completely unlawful, and can you separate those, or do we dismantle this and have to redo some contracts when Activision could just say, well, we're not going to have a Call of Duty League anymore, so this falls away, and you can't play our game, so good luck creating something else.
Yeah, it was $1 million to win the CDL championship last year.
Okay,
New
so
York
it's
subline
gonna come close to getting your money back just from winning there. So yeah, like your question is, how are you making money? Well, you're not. They also said you're not, because guess what? We're going to give you debt relief, so you can sign this and not say anything bad for us.
You're entering into this league to just continuously lose money, and the way that Activision's running it, it's not growing. They're killing it.
But it's the only thing you have, and it's what you do. So like it's hard. I see it from the business point of view of like, why would you get in business here? But if it's the thing that you want to do and you grew up on and you do this particular thing, you're not going to get out of it. And I think that's where this is coming from HECZ and Scump, is like, we've watched it too long. We have to try to find a way to fix this. And by bringing it to light, we may not be the ones to win. Like, we may be the scapegoats here that come in and the world hates us and we get crushed by it, but you're going to understand and you're going to see it. The first lawsuit that comes through never pans out normally. But what's going to happen afterwards, where everyone else says, oh, I can stand up now. Like, we can stand up now. We'll see probably all these other leagues start jumping in on like, oh, you're having that problem too.
I mean, I will say, if there was going to be two people that were going to make a splash and actually have some weight behind them, and these are the two.
It'd be us. It'd be AFK Chat joining the lawsuit. Bring us on, HECZ. We're ready to go. No, never mind. Don't do that, because we have no money. But we will definitely promote your side of things as it goes forward. As long as
I'm all for them. I'm on their side. Like I said, I'm confused a little bit about the overall, but all the intricacies of this is just, it's absurd, honestly.
Yep. And that's all we got for today. Thank you. This has been AFK Chat. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and you can find some short stuff from us on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you again. This has been AFK Chat number 6, talking about the breaking news of the lawsuit from HECZ, Rodriguez, and Scump Optic against Activision. Have a good night.